Good morning. Welcome in on 104.5 The Zone. How's morale? We got more football to talk about today. Despite being down 0-3, the season does not end. So this team begins preparation later this morning for a date with the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football. Now, they're going to have some kind of altered practice situation. There's no actual practice for us to attend today. Will Levis is going to speak. We'll carry that press conference live. And then, like I said, at a certain point, if it becomes irrelevant to carry the press conferences anymore, then we'll stop carrying the press conferences. But today, until at least the bye week, and we see where this team stands at 0-3 heading to Miami, I think we should continue to hear from the quarterback and the coach because not dead yet. Not dead yet. Jags winless. Colts have a win. Houston Texans got embarrassed on Sunday by the Minnesota Vikings, who are doing that to a lot of quarterbacks lately, so I don't think that's necessarily an indictment of Houston as much as it is a credit to Minnesota's defense. And then there's this stat from the NFL. I was reading through the NFL Weekly Preview. They give the game capsules, where each team ranks, offense, defense, special teams, respectively. 30 games decided by one score, 8 points or fewer in 2024, the most such games through week 3 in NFL history. 5 teams undefeated, 29 teams have at least one win this season. Since realignment in 2002, only 2 prior seasons in 2012 and 2022 had more teams register a win in the first 3 weeks of a season. Now, I don't read that to make you feel worse because you're not one of those teams. I read that to say that these games are all very close. Sunday's was not very close, but the first 2 results for the Titans were very much within their grasp. They have as good a chance to go down to Miami and win a game. In fact, they're favored inexplicably. But they have as good a chance to go down and win a game in Miami as they did the opportunity to beat the Bears or beat the Jets. I didn't really feel like they had a chance to beat the Packers.
And no matter how many games they lose, the evaluation of the quarterback is still going to be important week to week to week to week.
Yep. We're still doing the vibe check.
Yeah.
Every Monday.
It's going to be just as important in week 14 as it is now. We just might have a better idea, or hopefully have a better idea in week 14 than we do now. And hopefully for Titans fans, that outlook is going to be a little more glowing than the discourse at the moment.
So, I'm seeing some comments. You can interact with the show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. That's how you live stream us. If you want to call, 615-737-1045 is the number. Captain Trips on YouTube says only 6 teams have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. Well, I don't think that postseason should be a part of the discussion right now.
Yeah, if we're recalibrating expectations, that's the first discussion point, right? Because postseason, for a lot of people, was the hope and or expectation, depending on what you thought about this team and what the moves that they made. But that's where we start, right? Okay, postseason, are we officially... I mean, that hurts, right? That hurts for Titans
brother,
fans.
you went down 0-2, and you had a 6% chance to make the postseason in the expanded playoffs. Okay, so, I didn't go into this year, at least me, I didn't go into this year thinking playoffs. It's a bad football team that has to put a lot of pieces back together. And again, not to let them off the hook because what they've done is inexcusable, but it does take actual time for a new team to come together and look like a team instead of just talent at the wide receiver position or talent at the cornerback position. No, at some point, you have to actually take the coach at his word and say, our plan is to grow as we go as far as this. And they were setting the bar low to start with, right? They were messaging, we got to earn the right to have expectations. Yeah, you're correct. I have 0 expectations for you now. Maybe I had some level of expectation for you at the start of the season, but they have yet to earn any reasonable expectations. So I understand for the money spent that I'm not going to knock fans today for thinking, okay, push for a wild card spot at the very least. I mean, you could finish under 500 and get a wild card spot now. I don't know if that's possible in today's AFC right now because you got a lot more competitive divisions than the South at this point. But I did not. Did you think they were going to be a playoff team this year?
I thought it was fair for fans to have that expectation.
Sure.
For the team that's
But I'm not asking about what you think about what the fans' perception was. I'm asking you. You watch this team just as much as I did.
Yeah, I picked them to finish second in the AFC South.
But that's not necessarily playoffs.
I thought they would.
In the hunt?
I thought they'd be in the hunt all season long.
Okay, and by the way,
in the
7-10, which is what I felt about them prior to the season beginning, is still in the hunt. That's still in hand. That's still possible.
Like, to me, before the season, I said, if you are out of playoff contention with multiple games left on your schedule, the season is a big disappointment. I know transition year and all the parts and pieces and how rare it is for teams largely built in free agency to have any big success, but to be eliminated from playoff contention with multiple games to go is a big disappointment after spending the most amount of money in the NFL. It is. Like, I don't think there's any way around that. Like, we can say, well, it's a first-year head coach. How can you say they spent the most amount of money in the NFL?
Yeah, no. You signaled, hey, we got something.
Yes.
And then through 3 games, I do think you have something, okay? Like, I know that for the first 2 days of this week, I've been pretty miserable about it because I'm genuinely upset at the way that it continues to suck to watch them play on a regular basis. Fans feel very much the same. They had legitimate hope this offseason. That hope, by the way, justified in the moves that this franchise was making. And to see them fall short twice and get dusted the third time, that really does start to bother people, clearly. So, especially when you put it up against what the last 2 seasons have looked like, and that you're not holding Brian Callahan to account for the sins of coaching staffs past, right? But there's no question that the fan base feels it, even if the coaching staff doesn't. Like, they carry that with them. And at some point, you got to see some progress. So that's what this is all about. It's still about progress. Progress, by the way, would be winning 7 games after finishing 7-10 2 years ago, 6-11 last year. If you look, like a better football team, but you're still 7-10, to me, that's legitimate progress.
But that's what made the loss to the Packers so deflating.
Oh, because they looked worse than they have the first 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you at least had in the first 2 weeks, you could at least hold on to. Yes, there was frustration and there was anger, right? But you could hold on to the fact that if you just don't do these things, if you just don't have 2 blocked punts and 2 insane and needless turnovers by the quarterback, you're probably 2-0, at worst 1-1. But you don't have any of that to hold on to after the Packers game because Malik Willis and the Packers just came in here and kicked your butt.
Did you hear what conversation the morning show teased for tomorrow? What parts you would consider selling at the deadline if this team goes 0-4?
Crazy that's a conversation and it's a fair one to bring up before the bye, and it's an early bye, and it's insane that's where we are.
You know what? I was pissed about a week 5 bye. I was like, at least give me time to settle in the season. At least give me time to, be exhausted, and I'm already exhausted, so the week 5 bye does not sound that bad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that is a very reasonable topic to bring up.
Man, 615-737-1045 is the number, but that's my thing. Like, they just spent all kinds of money. Are they going to all of a sudden turn around and sell at the deadline? Because that's a legitimate conversation. I'm saying, I'm commenting on the morning show's discussion for tomorrow because, to your point, it is a legitimate discussion. But I don't know what's going through the front office's head right now. And sure as hell, if you're Amy Adams Strunk, go tell her that you just spent all this money this offseason. And now, you know what? Harold Landry, why don't we move him? Let's see what we can get for Harold Landry. Because, by the way, this is not, I know that we have some version of the discussion. Well, next year's quarterback class is always better. It feels like that dialogue is had almost every year. But, is there a game-changing quarterback, franchise-changing quarterback in this year's upcoming draft? Are you going to give me Quinn Ewers? That's tough for me to get excited about. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Mock Draft Wednesday.
Absolutely not. We're going to have 3 months after the season to talk about the draft. I just can we please?
This is your way to get me to talk more college football. You give me draft in September.
Don't care how bad it gets. The conversation of, is there a game-changing quarterback in the upcoming draft?
Brother.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
You can't tell me that the trade deadline discussion is a legitimate one and then tell me that this is one of the worst teams in football through 3 weeks. You have to at least have it in the back of your head.
But the problem is, we have no idea.
I know.
No, Trevor Lawrence was the game-changing, can't-miss quarterback in the upcoming draft.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what makes it so frustrating.
That's what I'm saying. It's a never-ending seventh circle of hell that we have been stuck in for 3 seasons. And we are going to work our way through it together. 615-737-1045, because unfortunately for you all, you're stuck with us for the foreseeable future. This football team, maybe they get better. Consistently over the past 4 years, we have not gotten much better, so now we're leaning extra on a football team that's bad to try and uplift us around here. Tough scene. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Gross.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Will Levis going to speak to the media here in a second. We will carry that press conference live for you. Phone calls in the meantime, 615-737-1045 is the number. Jackson, just give me a sign when he's at the podium. Let's go to Titus up first. Hey, Bob.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Hey, yeah, I just want to talk about the Titans this morning. I was at the game Sunday, and I just feel like our coaching staff should just really look internally, because anytime you have a third-string quarterback that left your team that you released and traded for a seventh-round pick and come in and beat you with good numbers, I feel like that the coaching should maybe look internally or see what they can do better to figure out what's going on to fix some of the holes within the team.
What makes you think that they're not?
I'm not saying that they are. I'm not saying that they're not doing it, but I still feel like when you release a guy that comes in and outplays your first-string defense that he played and practiced against, that says a lot about even evaluating talent as well. So that's what I'm trying to say. Look internally to see what we need to do better and moving forward.
Yeah, that's what they're doing, right? Like that's the whole thing. Brian Callahan's getting up at the podium and saying he's embarrassing, or it's embarrassing that they've started 0-3, that he's an 0-3 coach. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that you're not wrong or that you're not right, but like
you are being so unnecessarily dismissive of Titus right now.
I just think,
Titus, you're right.
Not
That's
played
what they're
3
doing.
days worth of audio to say that, yeah, that's exactly what they're saying at the podium. So yes, that is the most obvious thing. You are correct. Yes.
I mean, it's very fair for Titans fans to be looking around saying, what in the world is going on? This quarterback looked like he couldn't process a third down weeks ago, right?
Why is that Brian Callahan's problem? Well, no, not weeks ago. Weeks ago, he looked great.
He looked better this preseason.
No. He got smoked on the first series in New Orleans, and then he went out there, and him and Bryce Oliver led a comeback win to prevent overtime on the road in an environment that was not, it's not the Superdome at max capacity, but like Malik Willis 3 weeks ago looked like that.
He was better. Was he better than Mason Rudolph throughout training camp?
No, I wouldn't say so.
No, he wasn't. That's why he lost the backup quarterback job to Mason Rudolph.
One backup quarterback and another backup quarterback. But Malik has now graduated from not viable as a backup quarterback to viable as a backup quarterback. That he statistically was impressive is another matter entirely. Sure, I'm sure your defense is looking around, maybe not with heads hung low, but you don't think Denard Wilson is getting a piece of their ass this week?
Sure,
absolutely. You don't think that Denard Wilson is, I'm not going to pretend to know him super well. He just got here. We're still kind of learning these human beings as people, not just as coaches with tendencies, right? So the more time spent, the more that, I feel like I'll have a better read on the situation. But in the limited time that I've spent with Denard Wilson, I have no doubt in my mind that person is not pissed at himself for getting got by Malik Willis because they stopped Josh Jacobs. They did the thing that they were supposed to do, right? They stopped the number one threat on the Packers, and then Malik killed him on the ground.
Right. I just don't want us to be doing revisionist history because you've seen a little bit of it, right? Like what you just said. Well, why should we be surprised? That's what he looked like in training camp. Nobody batted an eye when Malik Willis didn't win the backup job, and they traded him for a 7th to Green Bay. So, let's not do this revisionist history. I'm not surprised he looked like that. Look how good he was in training camp. No, I was very surprised.
I have talked for the last 2 days about being surprised that Malik Willis went out there and beat them from the pocket. That is the newest development in all of this. That is a credit to Malik Willis. That is a credit to Matt LaFleur. It's also credit to the Titans coaching staff that let him go because he got significantly better while he was here. Far better than he was over the course of the last 2 seasons with the progress that you're trying to make. If he had Brian Callahan at the start of his career here, would it look significantly different from Malik Willis? I have no damn idea because that's not what happened. So, I'm not doing revisionist history. I'm saying that quarterback was markedly improved. We had the GM on. We had Ran on after roster cut days. I asked him about Malik Willis. He said it's night and day different. That's not something that happened overnight. That was legitimate progress that was made. And you, of all people, who's arguing against the idea of keeping 3 quarterbacks? Somebody had to go, and it wasn't going to be the guy that they went out and paid all the guaranteed money to in the offseason.
Yeah, and it wasn't going to be the guy they drafted to be the franchise quarterback at 33 overall.
Malik didn't get cut because he's not good enough to be a backup quarterback. Matt LaFleur gave up assets thinking that he wouldn't go through the waiver order because he was good enough to be a backup quarterback. The surprising element of all of this is that, 1, he had to play so early, and 2, again, that he beat them from the pocket, that he was checking at the line of scrimmage, that he was doing things here in regular season games that we have never seen him do before. That's why I was dismissive of Titus, because I just think that's the most obvious thing in the world to say.
Very unnecessarily dismissive of Titus.
I'm sorry. Bad tone?
Bad tone.
Okay. That's fine. I can be accountable. Bad tone. My bad. 615-737-1045. Uncle Bob.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call. No, Buck, you mentioned me yesterday at the end of the show, and I tried to get back, but it was 1 o'clock. But, yeah, I remember that. I still regret saying that in a way. Anyway, it was fun. That was 3 years ago. But I appreciate y'all a lot. Let me ask you this, Buck. Are you going to do the bowling thing again this fall? So I'll hang up and listen and go Balls.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bob. He's referencing yesterday because we were talking about Charlie and Franklin and Charlie being a part of the Open and Bob telling me to piss up a rope a couple of years ago. Anyways, funny bit. Bowling event, probably February. It just didn't make sense to do with our timeline this year, but I appreciate your interest, and we'll let you know as soon as we have things organized for that, but it'll be closer to the winter. Steve next.
Hey, guys. Good morning. So let's talk about the science of a tank. If I was Miss Amy or Rand, and my brand new shiny head coach who'd worked with Peyton Manning and Joe Burrow with great success came in and spent a couple of months with Will Levis and came into a meeting and kind of said, oh, dang, I don't know if this guy's got what it takes. He won't take coaching. We got a serious problem. What would I do? If I was really, really smart, I'd try to get a bunch of really good players on long-term contracts, and I would gather the wagons, keep it really, really close because the NFL doesn't like an organized tank. And I would say, okay, guys, let's grin and bear it. We got 3 months. We got 3 more months to go, and it's going to suck. But what's 3 more months if we can get a guy that'll be our QB, our multi-Super Bowl winning Hall of Fame quarterback for 10 to 15 years? It's worth a tank. It's worth a risk. Miami did it. Washington just did it. Let's do it. What if that's the plan? I think that's the plan. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Steve. I think that's ridiculous. And if you hired a coach who is willing to do that, one, that's a hypothetical. And all Brian Callahan has done is backed Will Levis at every turn. We've given him multiple opportunities to do what Doug Peterson did after the Jags lost and say, yeah, everything's on the table, including benching Lawrence. If you hired a person that's willing to tank, then that person shouldn't have been hired in the first place. That's my belief on it. I don't think that anybody that capitulates to that kind of mindset has any business running a professional sports organization. Now, would it be ignorant of me to say that doesn't happen anywhere in the NFL? Of course it does. And there are plenty of conversations had in back corners of facilities that resemble that, but not with the coach involved. Not with the coach involved. Brian Flores didn't want to do the tank for Tua. Remember, they turned it around at the end of the season. He's the one who's currently, is that lawsuit still ongoing with Brian Flores in the NFL? As far as the racial discrimination in their hiring practices, and also alleging that Stephen Ross was trying to do $100,000 handshakes to commit to the tank, and they wouldn't do it. They were just objectively terrible at the start of that season, and then he turned it around. So I'm never going to be pro-tanking, ever, because the coaches, their livelihoods depend on success. The players, their livelihoods depend on success. And selfishly, I've got no interest. I've got no time for an organization that would participate in that. And if they did that, we would bury them. We would bury them for actively tanking. Would we not?
Here's the thing. He pointed out Washington, very easy for Washington to tank. Everything was bad, right?
They've sucked forever.
Titans made a lot of investment.
Have they been
this
tanking for
offseason.
20 years? All right, Will Levis is up. We'll get back to this later. Here's the quarterback.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like you said, different team, different season for both of us. Anytime you play on Monday night, regardless of where it is, the whole world's watching, and it gives a little bit of extra excitement. So we got that. And yeah, I mean, that was a good one for us. And we're just hoping to go do it and get another one down there. And obviously in a point of our season where we really need one. So, it's been fun getting to know them as a defense and kind of what we're expecting. And obviously similar to what we saw through training camp with the structure and what they got. So good opportunity for us to go out and show what we're made of.
Last year with the comeback and then the emotion that you showed during that's been kind of one of your signature moments. So far this year, we haven't seen as much emotion from you even after good plays. Is that something that you're dialing back, or is that just waiting for it to come out at the right time, after a win or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's I'm just going to let my emotions play out however they see fit in the moment. And I guess I haven't really thought about that as to why maybe I haven't shown that side of me yet this season. And I know it's in there, and it just maybe just calls for the right situation. But that was cool. I think anytime you get a win like that, response like that's appropriate. But I don't know if we've had a situation this year where I thought a response like that was appropriate. So maybe something might happen this game where we can get some of that.
In that game, you had a scramble, and you and Jalen Ramsey, you lowered the shoulder. Talking to some of the guys, they were like, that's the moment where we saw he got that dog. If you remember, the interaction with your teammates, after that, what was that like?
Yeah, I think, we scored that drive, so that was just a way when we got back from that drive, just felt good energy, good juice. Not a position I want to put myself in as this team's quarterback with risking my body like that, but it's cool to feel that, and I'm just trying to do everything I can this game, to keep gaining the trust of those guys.
How big does a quarterback's role need to be in sack avoidance?
Definitely. I mean, everyone's got a role in it. Everyone from the receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks, O-line, obviously. So a lot of things that I can look towards internally. I think where I was setting myself in the pocket some of the times wasn't putting our O-line in the best spot to succeed. So playing around with that and understanding, what launch points for what specific plays or protections are most appropriate, and just hammering down on them. There's definitely a couple plays where I, let them know, like, it was definitely more on me than you guys. Like, it sucks that it goes down in the stat sheet as a sack, but it's something that I'm a part of and we're all a part of.
Did you say anything to NPF after the rough game that he had Sunday?
I'm always going to have his back. Yeah, I'm always going to have his back. I was just saying, like, I'm going to keep stepping up and trusting that I'm going to have that time. And people get beat, and I make bad plays. Everyone makes bad plays once in a while. And, he's just going to have to dirt it and move on to the next one, because we know he's got what it takes to be a tackle in this league, and he just got the best of him that play.
You bring up that feeling of needing a win. Just how do you walk the line between knowing how important it is to get a win and not getting desperate, not pressing?
Yeah, it's definitely not. You can't go in like thinking like, oh, we have to win. It's just we have to execute. We have to execute the game plan, and there's no situation that you're put in that really, unless it's, end of the game, desperation time, where it is appropriate to stray from that game plan or stray from whatever job you have on those plays. And yeah, there's a couple times even in that last game where towards the end where we kind of felt that way. And yeah, going back and grading myself, I think, if I just take a underneath throw on that 3rd and long interception, we get to 4th and manageable, there's still time to go down there and score and make it a 1-score game. So it's, as much as I might have felt like pressing might have been a little necessary in that situation, it wasn't. So I'm continuing to learn that and know that as long as we just continue to operate and execute to what we're expected, then everything will just come together.
You say grading yourself. Do you put an actual number on your performance every week?
No, I'm just talking, just what I'm seeing and how I can probably improve from my last performance.
You've got a pretty good rhythm with DeAndre on Sunday. How good was that? How much you're hoping that can continue at a place where you had success last year with him?
Yeah, I felt good. I felt like we had a good package for him, and he found the soft spots in that defense, and he ran some nice routes. And I felt like I was seeing him and feeling him all day really well, and was giving him some good balls to run and catch with, and it was good for him and his confidence to have that type of game, and we're going to continue to work with him going forward.
Going back to that game last year, he mentioned Hopkins, your touchdown to him where you scrambled. It was almost like a no-look throw. Can you kind of take me back through that, just what you're thinking going through that?
Yeah, no, it was just more plays that I personally think I need to make in terms of being able to get out of the pocket and make something happen off schedule. And that was a nice one we had last year where didn't like 1-2, got out of the pocket and found him kind of last-second flash. So it's a credit to him to know kind of where he's at in space and settle in that coverage, and that's what makes him great as a player, I think, is that understanding for space, and we're going to need more of that on Monday.
Blaine, sort of our philosophy that you tend to stick to, Will, and maybe when you're going through a tough stretch like this, anything you try to keep processing or keep in mind?
Just continue to instill confidence in myself and others. I think it's easy to kind of be in the woe is me, like what am I doing wrong, like am I not good enough, and you can never let like that exactly seep into your brain. You got to come back and just remind yourself of what kind of player you are and what got you to this point, and we are the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, and we remind each other that, and there's a reason why we're all here, and we should have no fear when it comes to going out there and playing against any team.
You and the team
to do at times, or do you do that pretty well?
I think I do well. I think it's been harder and harder after each of these losses to kind of come back and be that way. But I've been impressed with how the guys have been able to just continue to have the confidence in themselves and others, and just come to work. Regardless, like you wouldn't know that we're 0-3 walking around the way we've been working and communicating with each other, and that's how it should be. So I'm proud of the guys for that.
Are you on team Cambridge?
I've been really off. Honestly, the couple times where I might have caught myself to just to go on it, I'll just maybe look at it for a second. But yeah, no, I've been thinking about that too. It's it's not like I'm deleting the apps and everything, whatever, but it's just more so I'm not going to actively search for what people are saying about me.
I know you and the team can't really ask for patience, but Brian has talked about the need for patience with certain elements of things. How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, we want to come out firing and be 3-0 and get this thing started and rolling, and the reality is sometimes it takes a little bit for a new team and a new staff and then just everybody to feel each other and get into the rhythm that they know that they can achieve. So we're still on that path, and I just can't wait till we get there because I know it's going to be soon.
Like the last time that you guys were in the end zone in the fourth quarter may have been Christmas Eve of last year. How do you keep from letting that become a thing as soon as the fourth quarter happens?
Yeah, I heard a really good message, and it's the first 55 minutes of the game as a quarterback, it's all about giving your team a chance to win in that last 5 minutes. And that's, what we see week in and week out with the one-score games that happen almost every single game across the league, where it all comes down to what happens, either who's got the ball last or who does the best with the ball in their hands in that last third of the fourth quarter. And we got to do better, and I got to do better at that as a quarterback. We can drive or score on our opening drive, but it doesn't matter if we don't make things happen at the end of the game. So we got to be better in that area, and we got to start scoring some touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
How closely do you pay attention to what Tua is going through? And do stories like that kind of make you reevaluate or evaluate differently your job as a quarterback?
Yeah, no, I feel for him, and it's been terrible seeing the couple injuries he's sustained over the last few years, and it's something that we don't like to think about as players, but it's the reality of the game, and it's so hard to pretend like that's not something that's a potential for any of us to happen to. And I've always found that it's the more you play cautious, the more you're likely to be hurt. So I feel like the best way is just to go out and play aggressive and obviously protect your body, but the second you start thinking about those things, then maybe might not be the best for you. So, but yeah, it's praying for him and his family and that team. I know Coach McDaniel said some great things about how they're approaching that situation going forward, and I know he's going to see a neurologist or something I saw. So, yeah, just wishing the best for him. Yeah, it would have been fun to play against him and compete against him. But
is there any follow-up to the thought that maybe if a quarterback makes a mistake or two, sometimes there's hesitation or perhaps some second guessing? Have you found that to be the case at all?
Sometimes, when you throw a pick six on a hitch, you might hesitate the next time you try to throw one. I think I tried to throw one later in the game, and I kind of like double clutched it. But it's just kind of a matter of trusting what you're seeing, and even though something might have happened in the last play or the last drive that might not have gone the right way, just trusting that you've been seeing these things, you're ready, and that you're just going to react to what you see. So, yeah, it's tough going back out there after throwing a pick six on like an opening play like that, but just try not to let it get into your mind and just see things or let it develop how you see it.
You look at a lot of your scoring drives, like it's the first, second, or third drive when you guys are scoring of the game. I don't know if it's still a part of the script or not, but if it is, like what can you guys do to pull that success from the scripted plays to the duration of the game?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be. I think obviously guys are geared up for that, scripted plays we have to open games, and they know like, hey, I got a really good chance of getting the ball here. I know I got to be on this assignment. These are the couple of looks that I'm really keyed in for on these plays. Like I'm going to be ready for them. And maybe it's just on us as just the whole group to study a little harder and know like once those 10 plays are gone, we still got the however other many plays on the call sheet that still got to come off, or hopefully that we're able to come off, and you got to be just as dialed for those as you are for the ones that we're going to open with. So yeah, just he's continued to preach to us to keep finding things to add to our preparation routine, and obviously what we're doing isn't getting it done, so we're going to try to find a couple things here and there, studying wise or body wise, to get us ready, and I definitely think that all of us can benefit.
That's Titans quarterback Will Levis. We'll react to that coming up next. Take your phone calls, also some SEC observations. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Let's talk about a big weekend in the SEC. The headliner, of course, is Georgia and Alabama. Josh Pate's going to be in here at 11:20 to preview that matchup. But when we talk about the team that's under more pressure in that game, just one quick note before I play this Hugh Freeze audio that are the real SEC observations. Georgia down the road is at Texas, at Ole Miss, and hosts Tennessee. Alabama down the road, hosts Tennessee, hosts Missouri, is at LSU, and at Oklahoma. You tell me which path you would rather have. Because I'd take the Bama one every time.
I kind of think I would too.
So when you talk about more to lose, more pressure, higher stakes, I'm looking at Georgia, who has to visit Texas and Ole Miss before hosting Tennessee.
Yeah, no, Georgia definitely has the harder path there.
Those are all potential top 10 matchups down the road. So just something to think about. Okay, Hugh Freeze. Jackson played the audio from his radio show yesterday talking about we would have beat Arkansas 9 times out of 10 if we played them 10 more times, which I agree is a little ridiculous in a game that you kept coughing the ball up and lost by 10. But Hugh Freeze after the game is what drew a lot of attention when his quarterback Hank Brown and his running backs were turning the ball over in that loss to Arkansas. A lot of people took issue with this from the Auburn coach.
Unfortunately, this is what I know, and I know that there's people open, and I know that we're running the football. And we got to find a guy that won't throw it to the other team. And we got to find running backs that hold on to it. You know, that's a huge play there. I mean, we're going in to score. I don't know, what was it, 7-0 then? Or so it's 7-7, and our defense gets a stop, and who knows what happens. But, you know, the scheme is what most everybody in the country is running some sort of. But you've got to have good play at quarterback for sure to at whatever system you're going to choose.
A lot of people were upset about that. We got to find someone that won't throw the ball to the other team, and we need running backs that won't fumble the football. Saying Hugh Freeze was throwing his players under the bus. Bo Wallace, former Hugh Freeze quarterback, starred for Freeze at Ole Miss, tweeted this after those comments on Saturday. Long tweet from Bo Wallace. He said, "We're approaching the point that he's thrown so many quarterbacks under the bus that maybe no one wants to play for him. His offense helped me tremendously put numbers up when I blew my shoulder out, but why is it someone else's fault every time there's a loss? But when there's a win, I watch the press conference just to count how many times the word I is used. Appreciate what he did for me. My son wouldn't be playing for him, though." That is Bo Wallace, former quarterback at Ole Miss when Hugh Freeze was the head coach, and they had a ton of success, beat Alabama, double-digit win seasons, all of those things. A lot of people took issue with him throwing players under the bus. I have no issue with those comments. They do need to find players that don't throw the ball to the other team. Like, Auburn football players make money now. SEC football players make money now, right? So if a head coach says, we need players that won't turn the ball over, he's not wrong. I have absolutely no issue with that. What I do have an issue with is Hugh Freeze. Everybody was looking at you all offseason saying, you're going to go get a quarterback? And you said, nope, we're sticking with Peyton Thorne. Then Peyton Thorne threw 4 picks against Cal, and then you put in Hank Brown, and he's starting to turn the ball over. Young quarterback that you brought with you from Liberty when you got the job. Yeah, my issue is that's your responsibility to go find guys that won't turn the ball over. You chose not to do that in the offseason. So that was the issue that I took with Hugh Freeze. Him talking about we need players that won't turn the ball over when he was the one that chose to not go out and seek out those players in the offseason.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because, like, if you're Hugh Freeze and you're going with the guy that you trust and you think that guy is in-house as opposed to the transfer portal, isn't that kind of going to bat for your guy? Which is what Bo Wallace is arguing against, right? Bo Wallace is now arguing against that Hugh Freeze had Peyton Thorne's back in the situation where, to me, optically, from the outside, I have no idea what's in Hugh Freeze's head. I don't know what his internal logic was. Actually, whether he, said he was backing Peyton Thorne and just didn't feel it necessary to go out and get a quarterback, whether he actually believes in the player, what have you. But it almost, there are both two different arguments are being made, and both have logic to them, the way that I see it. Now, Bo Wallace didn't play in a time. I mean, he did play in a time where SEC athletes are getting paid. It's just now that's public as opposed to private under the table. So I understand that mindset, but that's basically the same thing that Ryan Fitzpatrick said about Brian Callahan after he got on the podium and had similar comments that were factually accurate about the quarterback and turning the ball over. So players are always going to think one certain way. Fans are going to think more like you're thinking, which is no. Now that they're being compensated, I don't care how old they are when, that still does matter. But the criticism of college athletes is going to dissipate the more money that the college athlete makes, right? Because I have never felt comfortable going at an 18-year-old football player for performance. It just doesn't feel right. But when there's money on the table and players are being brought to places and compensated in an effort to perform, Florida State defensive line, then yeah, the criticism becomes fair. It's tough.
This was never going to be the year for Hugh Freeze at Auburn, but even in those cases, you still can't let it spiral, right? Even if you go into a season understanding this isn't going to be the year for Auburn to contend for anything, you still can't let it get away from you. You can still get fired that way. I wonder what it would take for Auburn, who hosts Oklahoma this week and then has to travel to Georgia and then has to travel to a number 11 Missouri team before traveling to Kentucky. It's a tough 3-game road stretch there, and that's not even mentioning the A&M and Alabama games to close out the season. I'd be fascinated to see what the discourse is in Auburn if they were to go 4-8 this year.
Jackson, what do I have to give away coming up next?
615-737-1045 this week.
What are you
giving the number for them to call for the dumbest thing in sports?
Since when do you do that?
Since you just threw it to me without doing it.
Okay, proceed.
That was your fault. This week we have a chance for you to win 2 tickets to see Kings of Leon tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena, plus 2 tickets to the Tennessee Beer, Wine, and Shine Festival at Two Rivers Mansion on Saturday, October 19th.
Fun. 615-737. Get out of my way. 1045 is the number if you want the opportunity to win those great prizes. All you have to do is give us the dumbest thing in sports this week.
11:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. As the Titans prepare for a Monday Night Football visit to the Miami Dolphins, quarterback Will Levis met with the media this morning talking about the slow start to the season as the Titans try to turn it around.
Yeah, like we want to come out firing and, be 3-0 and get this thing started and rolling. And, the reality is, like, sometimes it takes a little bit for a new team and a new staff and just new everybody to feel each other and get into the rhythm that they know that they can achieve. So we're still on that path, and I just can't wait till we get there because I know it's going to be soon.
Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel met with the media yesterday with a quarterback update as Tua Tagovailoa remains on IR with a concussion. Skylar Thompson is day-to-day for the Dolphins with a rib injury. McDaniel left open the possibility of starting either Tim Boyle or Tyler Huntley against the Titans. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
That's right, 615-737-1045. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week for the opportunity to win what, Jackson? I've already given the phone number. You can't do it this time. What can they win?
615-737-1045. They can win 2 tickets to see Kings of Leon tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena, plus 2 tickets to the Tennessee Beer, Wine, and Shine Festival at Two Rivers Mansion on Saturday, October 19th.
615-737-1045. Who can do it more?
615-737-1045. Lucas, join in.
Let's move on.
My dumbest thing in sports this week is me not realizing that on Sunday during the game that Nicholas Petit-Frere had been benched, and I was questioning whether or not he had been actually benched because of one very obvious thing. He didn't have his helmet on the sideline, okay? Normally, when you see that, it's an indication that a player is either in concussion protocol and waiting to be cleared, and they take the helmet away from them when they are not, to not allow them to go back out into the game. Obviously, can't go out there without a helmet. When it was disclosed to us that it was not a concussion, nor was it injury-related, and that he had just, in fact, been benched in game, I became very mad about this because why don't you have your helmet on if you still might play? That, to me, was the dumbest thing in sports this week. That honestly bothered me as much as anything that he did on the field. It bothered me more than anything that he did on the field on Sunday because Jalen Duncan's not very good either. They may be getting Will Levis the starting. It's not like they pulled Levis. Levis was still playing well into the fourth quarter of that game. Played the duration of it. You may have to go back out there. What happens if somebody gets hurt and you don't have your helmet? You're scrambling around looking for your helmet on the sideline. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought, okay, maybe concussion protocol. And then when you find out it's not injury related, that legitimately pissed me off. That was the dumbest thing in sports this week.
My dumbest thing in sports this week is in college football. Have you seen this story about UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka, who announced via the Notes app today that he has decided to utilize his redshirt year and he will not be playing in any additional games this season. The statement goes on to say, I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for the continued success of the program. This has now turned into a he said, she said of the Holy Cross transfers NIL promises that were made by UNLV that allegedly were not met. There have been reports from all over the place. Pete Thamel of ESPN says former UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka's NIL representation, Marcus Cromartie of Equity Sports, told ESPN Sluka was verbally promised a minimum of $100,000 from a UNLV assistant coach for transferring there. None of that money was paid. That is, again, per his NIL representative. Carl Reed Jr. of 247 Sports tweeting, all financial commitments for UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka were completely met. But after their wins against Kansas and Houston, Sluka's family hired an agent, and they collectively feel that his market value has increased. And then you have Bob Sluka, Matthew's father, telling ESPN that his son's agents agreed to an NIL deal with the school back in February and never received payments and never asked for any adjustments to the original deal. Dumbest thing in sports is the lack of transparency in name, image, and likeness and the payment of college athletes. That leads to these things. That leads to collectives promising money that they just don't have. Schools, assistants promising money that they don't have, i.e. Florida, Jaden Rashada. And the fact that we are in this world because of the mess the NCAA created over decades and decades. Matthew Sluka, through the first 3 games, has completed 43.8% of his passes for 318 yards. 6 touchdowns to 1 interception, so he's not turning the ball over. And they do have some quality wins. But the whole situation, the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Gary Parrish put it really concisely on Twitter. It appears an undefeated college football team ranked in the top 30 of the AP poll just lost its starting quarterback, ... because of an NIL dispute. That's the game now. It's a possibility. Just because you haven't seen it before doesn't mean it won't happen again. And the he said, she said part of it, it's just... it's so stupid and petty. Jackson?
I'm going with an easy one. Cam Taylor-Britt of the Bengals had this to say before their game against the Commanders.
Yeah, composed. They don't make them do a lot, so they keep it really simple for them. Nice college offense. Kingsbury's the OC, so I love to move guys around here and there, but just keep it real simple for him. I heard his pass percentage is very high, but he's only throwing short route.
It's tough to hear over the locker room audio, but he said he called the Commanders' offense a college offense because Cliff Kingsbury is the coordinator. And then I will pull it up on the game book on NFL Jesus. The Bengals defense
got lit up.
Surrendered 254 passing yards to Jaden Daniels, 21 of 23, 2 touchdown passes. He had a rating of 141.7, also 108 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns and a thick 6 in the middle of that as well. That was one of the 2 touchdown passes that Jaden Daniels threw. So I heard that Cam Taylor-Britt stood by his comments in the postgame afterwards, and I think that Zach Taylor might have gone after him a bit in a press conference of his own for, making ridiculous comments.
Yeah, Zach Taylor said, we don't need to take shots like that. That team has not punted in 2 weeks. Talk about the Commanders.
But when does this ever work out well?
It used to work pretty well for the Titans against Blake Bortles. Jarrell Casey in the week leading up was merciless in his trolling of Blake Bortles. Wesley Woodyard had the Jags print jacket that he would wear every time that they would go hunting, essentially. So the Titans and the Jags had a pretty good back and forth on that, to which the Titans came out successful more often than not.
Well, Taylor-Britt admitted that he is eating his words because they lost, but he stuck to his guns in that he didn't regret the college offense comments. He says they still resemble a college offense.
Yeah, and he got.
Yeah.
All right. For the opportunity to win some tickets, let's go with Ron.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, I think I'm the dumbest thing in sports, and here's why. My neighbor, God bless his soul, Mike, he'll be over there watching the Titans and everybody else, and he'll call me to come over and hang with the guys. Then he finds out that I'm at home watching Real Housewives of Atlanta or something. And then I show up over at his house about third quarter and act like I know what's going on. And he tells me, Naughty, you don't know nothing about sports, so just sit there and shut up. And then they wear me out for watching Real Housewives of Atlanta.
It's good TV. Nobody should fault you. I don't think, I know that your submission is for the chance to win tickets, but I don't fault you at all. It's good television. That's all it is. You can like both things.
That's great.
You have a buddy like that who just comes over to hang for the vibes, doesn't watch sports at all? If you're hanging around communally and watching sports?
I don't think so.
No, you probably wouldn't. You'd vote them off the island as a Tennessee fan.
That's great. Real Housewives of Atlanta.
It's good TV. I'm not mad at him about that. Let's try Jay up next.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Good.
Good. Hey, my thing is Levis Petit-Frere. He's supposed to be a sports analyst for fantasy football. If he must have done his research, because this week when I saw, he was getting his butt whipped. So if you pick your guy to what he says, you will be the dumbest thing in sports. So yeah, you are.
If you take Nick Petit-Frere's analysis advice in The Dumbest Thing in Sports, not a great phone line by Jay.
Yeah, I hope he didn't recommend the Packers defense last week.
Apparently, like, he was on a live stream broadcast the week that they announced that. I haven't watched it, so I'd just be curious to know what he's saying on these broadcasts. I'm certain that the team is curious to what he's saying on these broadcasts. Is it Jax up next?
Hey, Buck, you got me? It's Jace.
Okay. Hi, Jace. Excellent work by Jace.
Hey, Buck. So my dumbest thing in sports is the tight end production in the NFL so far this year. All these top tight ends, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Laporta, Trey McBride, they've disappeared completely and are killing our fantasy production. Where are these guys? Telling me Goddard's the number one tight end in the NFL? It's crazy.
Didn't Laporta get carted off?
Yeah, he did. Ankle.
Now, his point stands about tight end production, but including Sam Laporta in that is kind of crazy.
I hate fantasy football so much.
Exactly.
He said, yeah, what of it?
How dare he?
That, honestly, how football players keep their cool around people or with people that tweet them about their fantasy football results, I don't know. I don't know. I would want to wring somebody's neck if they sent me. If I'm Sam Laporta, I get my ankles broke or whatever happened to him. Apparently he's week to week. So
it's not a long term.
Doesn't seem like again, he got carted off in an NFL football game, and my guy is calling in and saying, "Where are these tight ends? Where's the production?" I don't know. He's on a stretcher. What do you want?
No, the Travis Kelce stuff is interesting though.
Yeah, but he wasn't a big deal. Like, he's load managing. He's doing this on purpose. And I know he's not getting like high volume targets. And Bert had a conspiracy theory about Derwin James getting suspended because they're playing the Chiefs this week, and the NFL's trying to get Travis Kelce back into the game, back and involved for the Chiefs right now, for the 3-0 Chiefs, like they need any help.
I mean, 8 catches through 3 games. I haven't looked, but I wonder if it's the lowest start to a season in his career.
My team auto draft, by the way, is undefeated in my fantasy football Titans Media Fantasy Football League, and I have Kyle Pitts, so he's doing well. I don't know what to tell you. Who do you want to pick?
I think Ron, the Real Housewives of Atlanta thing was funny.
Pretty funny. All right, congratulations to Ron. He wins the tickets. Shame on you, Jace, for your fantasy football shame that you're sending in the way of the tight ends. I know, I'm kidding, largely. One of them got injured, though. That made me laugh. Josh Pate, next. Famously, this show is now a college football show. I've long said this. Josh Pate joins us in studio.
Oh.
He, of course, also knows this. Well documented.
It says it on the door.
It's never been anything but. I don't know what you're talking about.
The paint's still wet, but it says it on the door.
CFB show.
I knew you'd come around.
I'm
That's
so
the whole
sad.
thing.
I'm
I
so
knew
sad. It took but it took my spirit being broken. Okay, it took 3 years of just getting just tragedy, football tragedy.
But now he's scared because people are really going to see right through him.
Yeah.
That's my fear. That's my deep sea. That's why I'm so upset, because I'm about to have to make a pivot that I have never been more unequipped in my life to make.
But can we just lead with the big news of the day? You're pivoting to college football, at a time where Indiana cracked the JP poll last night for the first time ever.
Yeah. Who's your football, baby?
Wait till Florida swoops in.
Sig Signetti out here dicing them up. They scored 77 in a game before Tennessee did. Eat it.
They sure did.
Eat it, nerd.
Look at that, man. They're in there. Rutgers is in there.
Oh.
It's just, boy, the sport has a lot to offer. If you want to continue playing with the team you're on, it has a lot to offer.
Well, at least I get the TMZ element of it. If I'm going to make this pivot, at least I can get some NFL vibes, because I've never seen a contract holdout without a contract in football before, but that seems to be what UNLV is currently experiencing with their quarterback. And now Lucas brought this up during the commercial break, but Lucas, you're saying that college coaches elsewhere are commenting on the situation with the UNLV quarterback, who said that he was promised a certain amount of money that was not fulfilled. There are conflicting reports to that effect. And now you have finger pointing at a kid that just quit on a team.
Brian Kelly saying, quote, the NIL becomes a third-party piece, you lose control. And that's why the revenue sharing piece is so important, and getting that legislation passed now puts that back through the universities. He went on at some length. Kirby Smart telling us this will not be the last time something like this happens.
Your thoughts?
I am looking at a screen I'm in the live chat on the YouTube channel right now, but I'm looking at a screen right now of people texting me who work in athletic departments. I've got 3 of them on my screen that I have ongoing conversations with. I'm going to read you what one of them just said. This is not the only group of 5 player in this situation. What he did is not unprecedented. Right now, you're in a situation where programs were advised by lawyers due to the unclear rules. They were risking penalties if they entered into written contracts with players. So there are a lot of guys out there, because of the complete nebulosity of NCAA ruling, that decided, well, we need to pay the players, but we don't know if it's legal, so we're just going to enter into verbal agreements. And then who's making the verbal agreement with the player? Is it always the head coach? Is it always the collective? Is it an assistant coach? So that's in the abstract. In the here and now, this is pathetic for college football. And for those who are just tuning in, like, the quarterback just flat out quit on UNLV this morning. And here's what happened. Having now spoken to enough people inside that program, this family, et cetera, I think the kids started out the season and then wanted more money and went to him, and they said no. And then he discussed a little bit reduced rate, and they still said no. And I've got it on fairly good authority. Those were sizable numbers. And whenever they want to release him, they can release him. And so they basically called his bluff, and he wasn't bluffing, and he's gone. And so that was one of the favorites to compete for a G5 playoff spot, by the way. UNLV's undefeated. They're rolling right now. I think they got Syracuse coming in either this week or next week. And so here's the standoff. The standoff is, what are you going to do about it? Not us in this room. We're powerless. But what are you going to do about it? Who's a decision maker? If this happened in the NFL, everyone would just look at Roger Goodell. In college football, you just look all around the room. Everyone looks at each other. No one knows who to look at. So what the coaches are saying there, they've known. They're trying to operate and run major programs, and they have no clue what the rules are. They have no clue what's legal, and what's legal now may not be legal 2 years from now. So how do you even enter into deals where there is no guideline? There's certainly no precedent for almost any of this. So no one knows how to run an athletic department. It's on the fly. There's no book on it.
It's just funny to me because, I'm used to seeing players threaten to hold out. I'm not used to seeing players quit. We brought up Sadiq Charles in the middle of the Titans season. I know the Jets pass rusher Hassan Reddick, right, he's still missing games as far as I know.
Stacking up sizable fines in the process.
So he hasn't outright quit, but he is quiet quitting. It's not so quiet in New York, but he's quiet quitting. So this is a phenomenon that I'm not completely unaccustomed to at the professional level, but NFL players have a degree of leverage because you cannot just go to the next player off the conveyor belt in recruiting the way that college football programs can. And I don't know the state of UNLV's, I don't know why that's so hard for me, UNLV's quarterback room, but I have to imagine that it is far easier to just say, all right, kid, you're up next, than to capitulate to a player's demands when the player is not that good.
The other part of this is in the NFL, when you're looking at a player holding out, you're looking at a new contract get signed, they are represented by an agent that is certified, and therefore they are literally an agent. In this world, you and I could be agents tomorrow, because all it takes is calling yourself an agent and convincing a kid that you should represent them. I mean, can you imagine now, if you're fully on board with players' rights, if you're always defending the player, let me just present a scenario to you. Generic, of course. How would I know any different? Let's say that you get a call at like 5:48 p.m. The Thursday of week 3 of your game, and you answer the phone and say, "Hey, this is Jerry." I was like, "Jerry who? My cousin Jerry?" "Oh, no. I represent your quarterback." "Huh? Who do you work for?" "Oh, him. I represent him." "Says who?" Your quarterback does. "Anyway, we want $75,000 more dollars. We think his market value is increased, so you need to come up with that, or he's not playing this weekend." What do you do? And I'm not talking to you. I'm speaking generically to someone driving around Franklin right now who is Mr. or Mrs. Players' Rights at all costs. What do you do? And also, let's zoom it way out. Why is anyone worth anything in football? It's because it is an entertainment-based concept. A lot of people like this sport. Therefore, your value is really, really big if you can play it. But how do you maintain the value of the sport if what people have loved about it for decades and decades is being chipped away at by introducing new concepts like this? Because I promise you, there is no one who sees this headline or this story playing out today that says, man, I love the sport more now that I see these kind of headlines. The net is only negative on this sort of thing. And so I always said to myself, boy, I'd ask, at the end of the day, the greater good of the sport is inherently part of my value. I'm not a star lacrosse player. I'm a star football player. That's why I make a whole lot of money, and they don't, because people like football more than they do lacrosse in most portions of the country. And so, am I serving any part of that? And are the decisions that are or aren't being made serving any part of that? The answer is a resounding no.
We're going to talk actual college football with Josh Pate. Of course, you can subscribe to Josh Pate's College Football Show on YouTube. You can also get the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Because from my vantage point here, looking at the way that this stuff is being handled, it just feels more corporate. It feels more cold. It doesn't feel college football. It feels like the NFL. The monetization or the further monetization of college football in the decisions that they've made in conference realignment and the 12-team playoff and all these other things, they are reflective of, all right, just squeeze every last dime out of this at the expense of tradition and at expense of the general feel-good that people have, the genuine love that people have for their programs, where we've talked about this before with you. You have players that don't even identify with a program really anymore for the amount of times that they hop in the transfer portal. That diminishes the entire aura, even as it's not something that you can see, it's not something that you can touch, right? It diminishes the entire aura of what makes college football special and different. I totally understand why this would work not to the benefit of the sport as a whole, but my thing is it's an overcorrection, right? Sure. Where players' rights in college football and players' ability or lack thereof to capitalize on their value has been so skewed in favor of universities and television networks and all these things that the overcorrection has now come, and it doesn't make it right, but this is just this thing trying to balance itself out. And you may think that I'm incorrect on that, but that's the way that I see it.
You're actually not correct enough. So let's take it one step further. This is why I think they've got to get it figured out, because the disaster scenario is in play. The disaster scenario was never a G5 quarterback opts out in week 4. That's bad. The disaster scenario is you just expanded your playoff and a lot of people paid billions of dollars to acquire the rights to broadcast it. The entire value of that is built on the idea that everyone cares about the same thing. Everyone places value in the same thing. So for a long time in this sport, we have valued winning on Saturday, getting to a conference title game, hopefully getting to a national title game and winning it. That's above and beyond all else, right? So the thinking was, well, when we expand the playoff, we got kids opting out of bowl games now, but they'd never opt out of, let's say, a playoff game. Because we care about the playoff. And so since we, fans, sports writers, whoever, since we care about it, the players will automatically care about it. Hey, what happens if a group of players gets together and decides, maybe we value money more than a first-round playoff game? What's to stop that from happening? There is nothing. The answer is there's nothing standing in the way of that except maintaining the facade of valuing certain things competitively above and beyond anything else monetarily. But if that barrier gets broken, it's permanently broken. And the gig is up on everything. So they know, I can promise you, they know we've got to get this figured out before someone figures out that's 19 or 20 years old that they could hold us up at the 11th hour on games that we've paid billions of dollars to broadcast. Because right now, you've got a huge blind spot. Everyone knows that. You better get it figured out.
Florida State fans are already making that allegation about their defensive line situation.
Josh Pate, are you willing to tell me that Tennessee is as much of a national title contender as Georgia and Texas?
Do it.
No. Ask me the follow-up. Give me the follow-up.
He was expecting you to say yes. All anybody said to him for the last 2 weeks is yes about that.
Look, no, but it's fair. I guess the smart way to ask that question. 2022 Tennessee was never a national title contender. Right. Offense was the great equalizer, but the defense, the talent, the depth wasn't there. Is the talent, the defense, the depth there enough to join that great equalizer that is the offense and elevate Tennessee into that tier?
Yes. There's your yes.
Okay.
And I'll even expound on this one professionally. I will expound on this one. My answer is not a resounding no. My answer is on a neutral field right now, I still think those teams would be favored over Tennessee. But the difference is, remember 2 years ago, you've got the Bama game. That's what everyone remembers. You had to score half 100 to win it, but you won it. Then everyone's attention shifted to, they go to Georgia in a couple of weeks. And weren't they briefly ranked number one?
Tennessee was number one.
They were,
going into that game.
So they go in there and they don't match up. All right, so then we get 2 years removed from that. You're going to get Bama at home again. You're going to go to Georgia again. And the whole question on everyone's mind is, what lesson did you learn from that? How differently did you apply development, talent acquisition, evaluation, everything? I think Tennessee, evaluation-wise, not to get sidetracked, really a step ahead of the game. They're doing a really good job on that front. So back on the main road now. How will they look physically against Georgia? And how will Georgia look against Alabama this weekend, by the way? I think the answer is yes. Here's the difference. The difference is a first-year starter at quarterback is a different animal in October, November than he is in September. So I'm still watching Nico go through a lot of firsts. He's very, very supremely qualified to handle them and pass them test-wise with flying colors. So my answer is not no, man, they're not close. My answer is, may see still a little separation, but that's a gap that can close within a season. So they're there.
He saw the hurt in your eyes and he couched it.
It did hurt me.
Is what happened.
It was
there.
have you ever had a country music song look at you? That was a country music song looking at me. I'm not talking about bro country. I'm talking about late 80s, early 90s, crying in a boxcar, man. That was tough. Tennessee is going to win it all, Lucas. Tennessee
thank you.
is
Just
going
tell
all
him
the way.
that. That's all he wanted from you there. Well, that's all he wanted.
It is interesting. Tennessee fans, it's hard for them to stop at that line, right? Because even in 2022, Tennessee's the number one team in the country. It's hard for fans not to say, of course, we're a title contender. Look at the college football playoff ranking. But there was still this feeling of everybody looking around with this wondrous, what's going on here? It feels a little more secure in 2024. Yes, Josh.
Thank you. It is different. It is different. You shouldn't stop. You should be head over heels on this. And here's the difference. Here's how here's a sure sign that your program is just leveled up. Remember when Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma and they would score 1 million points every week, but when they would get in a playoff situation, they were no match for an Alabama because they had 2022 Tennessee problems. They could score a lot, but physically they didn't match up. All right, Lincoln Riley never changed that. He's only just now changing it at USC years later. Heupel was that in 2022. Difference is now there are facets of the Tennessee program rapidly scaling up that are out of his wheelhouse. That's how you know a coach is going from just a glorified coordinator to a legit head coach, like a high-level head coach, because he has nothing to do with defense historically. And yet portions of his program that are out of his wheelhouse are scaling up. That's a big deal. That means that your coach has got staying power, and not that anyone's doubting that there. But that's a sign that you're going to actually be a contender, and it's worth drinking the Kool-Aid this year.
We're going to talk about this weekend's slate of college football. One huge game in the SEC in particular with Josh Pate, if he's got about 10 more minutes for us.
I may even have like 12 or 13.
Look at that. That's next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Josh Pate is in studio. Subscribe to Josh Pate's College Football Show via podcast, via the YouTube channel. It is the best place for you to get all the ins and outs of not just the games, but of course all the intel that you need to know. It's a really, really good resource. I don't just say that to gas him up, because famously we're now in competition. This is now a college football show. This is. So turn your you can't be in competition if you don't turn your microphone on.
I've got. We here? Now we're here. I had brass knucks tucked into my sweatpants this morning.
That's fine. You know that you wouldn't. You know that it would not be a physical altercation between you and I would just hire somebody. That's how that would work.
As would I. And I would open up. There's an entire notes file in here that just says "rising dirt."
Bert also has one of those, but I think he's talking about the actual jar of dirt, not anything digital. Anyway. You were in Oklahoma this weekend. You witnessed Tennessee's kind of, prove it to the rest of us, prove it to yourselves moment. Now we're talking about a really, really interesting game this weekend, of which I assume you're going to be at, Alabama, Georgia.
I'll be there.
This weekend. I am fascinated. We talked about the dynamic of these two fan bases and who's actually under more pressure, because Alabama still has yet to have their kind of come to football Jesus moment about, oh no, now it's not just you're expected to win every game. They're still probably in that mindset because they have looked very, very impressive throughout the course of Kalen DeBoer's debut tenure. Whereas Georgia has the more difficult schedule. Of course, Georgia has bigger expectations on them nationally. I wonder how you view those two fan bases, though, and how they're going to handle what this may look like on Saturday.
It's going to be a spectacle. There is a thought out there that since you have an expanded playoff, there's less significance on regular season games, which broad strokes is true. I don't think it applies to this one because this matchup is like a one-game season. It's its own thing.
Because Trump will be there.
Of course, just because of that. Not because of the personal border rivalry.
His face is behind you, careful. This is a Trump commercial. No, I think it was a Kamala commercial.
Okay.
It was just,
it was the shady black and white, hue filter. That's right.
And look, possibly an invite to the box.
Oh.
That I'll turn down because I don't want to make it about me, Buck. I don't want to make it about me.
Well, and you're, of course, saving your endorsement for when we get closer to November.
That's correct. I know it means something. So here's a question. If you've never faced a coach, which DeBoer's never faced Kirby, and DeBoer's Alabama has never faced Kirby's Georgia, is there anywhere else? I always try and find this angle. Is there anywhere I can scan the horizon and find something of meaning? Find an angle, in other words, that I don't find myself afterwards kicking myself for having not seen. What if I told you that Kirby Smart had a guy he trusted to run his defense for a little while? The guy was so good, he got a head coaching job at the University of Oregon, and he ran the same defense that Kirby does. Good athletes. Was favored against Kalen DeBoer twice last year and went 0-2 against him. If I told you that, would you be interested?
I sure would.
Okay, well, it happened. And it was Dan Lanning's Oregon Ducks. And I was at both games last year. And the first time, it's very interesting because Washington threw it on them to win. Really good game in Seattle. And then people like me looked down the road and said, there will be a rematch in the Pac-12 title game. There was on a neutral field. Oregon's a bigger favorite in that one. And Washington beats them again soundly and runs the ball on them to do it. I was talking to an Oregon staffer yesterday. He said, DeBoer never gets flustered. Dude is an assassin at in-game, like not halftime, but in-game series by series evaluation and schematic changing. And he said they beat us two different ways. And so, that's certainly not some slam dunk like copy paste. That's what's going to happen here. But there's familiarity between Kalen DeBoer's offense and what he's going to see Saturday. And then the other thing about that is when you last saw Georgia, they were kind of struggling and methodically finally put Kentucky away, but it was an ugly game. They had 3 defensive linemen that played 50-plus snaps each in that game, and then the next closest played 17, and they were out of depth. They're getting probably 2 or 3 guys back this game. What I'm interested in is what kind of legs do they have under them, conditioning-wise? Like, those guys haven't played in a little while. And if Bama can put together some sustained drives early on, which is tougher because they don't have an intermediate pass game, but if they can do it, and I think they can run the ball fairly effectively, it could be Bama's game to have in the fourth quarter. Now, if they don't, or if Carson Beck is able to pop them early, and he doesn't have a star receiver to throw to, so just the The overall aggregation and totality of Georgia's talent roster has to be what does it. If they can do that, it's a much different game, and you find out about those young Bama secondary players. I'd make sure those young guys can tackle on the perimeter, by the way. It's one thing to find out if they stand up in coverage, but if I got 18-year-old DBs on the field, I'm making them tackle me. That's the first thing I want to find out. So a lot of things you can't really know that we'll find out a lot about Saturday night.
Josh Pate in studio with us. Don't say it. Don't say it. I know. 0 days without incident. Reset the board.
To talk into it.
Unbelievable.
He did it too. Lingering. Yeah, but that's not his responsibility.
You don't know that. I just want the credit. I don't want the blame.
Are the concerns about Georgia's ability to get to the quarterback still lingering after four games? And where are the holes, I guess?
I mean, a little bit. It's not as big a hole if Georgia's not racking up sacks. It's never been a focal point. To pressure the quarterback is a focal point there, but there are a lot about gap sound, assignment football. Saban was like that for a long time. Like there was all of a sudden this year where they popped on sack totals and whatnot, but by and large, the way Kirby and Saban both have done it for a long time is just make sure you play gap sound assignment football up front and you trust your secondary, and overall, we're just going to drown you defensively because we're better athletically than you. Now, having said that, you do want to get after the quarterback. They don't have the game wreckers, specifically on the interior of their D-line. They don't have a Jordan Davis. No one does. That's why there aren't many of him ever. Michael Williams comes back this weekend, we think. Columbus, Georgia native, Michael Williams. And so he ought to be a difference maker, but the question is not will he physically be on the field? The question is what version of him, what percentage of him is on the field? Because this Alabama offensive line looked terrible against USF when they had everyone playing out of position. 5 for 5, they're back to health now. And that's what you saw against Wisconsin. That's why they look like a machine. And they'll have that again this weekend. So I don't know if they're going to have Milroe under constant duress. The other really interesting stat here, to give you an idea of how good that O-line's been for Alabama when healthy, Alabama is number 1 in the country at rush yards before contact. So that's the kind of stat Georgia has to change up. Like, get hands on guys. Get them down early. Specifically the quarterback there. Get him down early.
Hard to do.
Yeah.
What definitively makes Texas the number 1 team in the country right now?
Nothing definitively makes anyone the number 1 team in the country. I thought that when Georgia was number 1, and then people knocked them from their perch, and folks have Texas up there now. Have you seen Texas have to run the ball when it counts yet? Has anyone seen that? Because we all know, like in fall camp, they had 2 tailbacks go down. Just like Tennessee was replacing all this secondary production, and then they had a nickel go down, and everyone said, oh no, Tennessee's going to be vulnerable in the secondary. Oh no, Texas is going to be vulnerable at tailback. No one's tested those things yet, but no one talks about it anymore. Might I present the scenario that both of those cracks in the dam are still there, and when the water pressure gets applied, you may very well find out, oh, that was a weakness. We just kind of forgot about it. So Texas is still vulnerable there. Texas is not a perfect team. I don't know that there's a team at any point this year that's going to separate from the pack. I think your question is not whether one team separates. It's, are there a lump of teams that separate collectively, and then we know our national champ is somewhere in that lump?
Fair to expect we're not going to find out about Texas this weekend.
It is fair, yes. I don't want to spoil the ending.
Mississippi State not going to press them?
It's caused Mississippi State's quarterbacks out, right? Yes. It's that's going to keep it not within 50. That's a shame.
Josh Pate, always good to have him in studio. Always appreciate his insight and analysis. Have you taken your pre-workout yet?
Do you not see my hands fidgeting?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm getting ready to land the plane. Every time you come in here, once we get towards the end of the hour, like you start to shake as if you're going to spontaneously combust. So I know I got to get it moving.
And the thing is, I know it's unprofessional as I'm doing it. I just can't help it. That's what copious amounts of caffeine flowing through one system will do.
If we cared about professionalism, they wouldn't have put us on the air. Are you kidding me?
Definitely wouldn't need the brass knuckles if things got dicey in here.
All right. Subscribe to the show. Josh Pate's College Football Show, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Subscribe to it on YouTube, live twice. Are you doing, live 3 times a week right now?
Yeah, just because you're competing against me doesn't mean you need to shortchange how many times I go live per week.
I don't even think about you.
Wow.
As we enter this college football show fight. It's like the scene in Anchorman. Who's got the trident? It's probably Pate. Get out of here already.
Buck killed a guy.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Coming up next, quarterback headlines. Is it just your quarterback struggling, or is the league suffering from a bit of a dilemma right now? Two Rivers. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. They have been in business for over 40 years, 4 decades of service, because they do it the right way. Whether you want to go out to the dealership and test drive a vehicle there on site, you can do that. Whether you want to shop online, customize the exact Ford that you want, and get it delivered to your door because you don't have time to go to the dealership, you can do that too. The best teams adjust for the customer, and that is exactly what Two Rivers Ford does. Their non-commissioned sales team also does not work on commission, so there's never any pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying process. That's why I'm a Two Rivers Ford customer. I got my 2022 Ford Explorer for them, and I did it the customizable way. No matter how you like to shop, Two Rivers Ford always makes the process fast, easy, and fun. It's why they're the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com.
12:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. As the Titans prepare for a Monday Night Football visit to the Miami Dolphins, head coach Brian Callahan met with the media just a few minutes ago, saying that cornerback Chido Awuzie will likely be placed on injured reserve this week with a groin injury. Callahan also said yesterday that Jeffrey Simmons is day-to-day with an elbow. Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel met with the media yesterday with a quarterback update as Tua Tagovailoa remains on IR with a concussion. Skylar Thompson is day-to-day with a rib injury. McDaniel left open the possibility of starting either Tim Boyle or Tyler Huntley against the Titans. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour is upon us. Now, we have not done an NFL headline segment at all this week because there's been a lot to react to. Vols win, Titans lose. Both have been enough to carry us through the first 2 and 3, basically 2 and 3/4 of these first 3 shows that we've had. But it is worth looking at quarterbacks specifically, quarterback headlines around the league, because the headline here all season is going to be the quarterback. The quarterback spoke today. He sounded like a very sad boy. Will Levis did at the podium. Who's to blame him? It's like Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan's hat during the press conferences is getting progressively lower with each loss. Will Levis also starting to mirror that trend. I don't blame them. I don't know what else they're supposed to say. They're both miserable. Losing is miserable in the NFL. But quarterbacks around the NFL are struggling. We have not seen many 300-yard passers. I know Burrow threw for 300 in a loss. I know Dalton threw for 300 in a win. But passing yards are down. Explosive plays are down. Scoring is down league-wide. And quarterbacks generally have not been that impressive, save a few performances like Sam Darnold, who...
It's time for quarterback headlines with Lucas Panzica.
It's going on. And
yeah,
on
you're
and
right.
on.
I was rambling. It's
All
fair.
right. So
That's
Mike
fair.
Tomlin stating that Justin Fields is going to start again against the Indianapolis Colts. Steelers are 3-0. Mike Tomlin also saying he's not going to name Justin Fields the permanent, definitive QB1 for the rest of the season because he said, quote, there's no need as Russell Wilson continues to deal with a lingering calf injury.
All right, so this is very Vrabel-esque, right? This is like Mike not wanting to name a backup. It's like, for what? And I get, in theory, he's right. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the way that you want to do it.
Tomlin's one of those, though, that you're just like, yeah, you do you, man. No need, then there is no need. You do whatever.
I have the only people that want Mike Tomlin fired ever are Steelers fans.
Yeah.
Like, every time I've done a game in Pittsburgh, I get in an Uber, and it's unprompted because, like, I'm one of these awful people that has quiet rides selected on my Uber. I don't want to talk to people, to be honest with you. But Pittsburgh Uber drivers ignore that every time, and they immediately launch into a diatribe about the Steelers because that's all people care about there. And they hate They don't hate Mike Tomlin, but it is so funny to me because, yes, you're right. Mike Tomlin gets carte blanche with whatever he wants to do. I'm with it. All he does is have winning seasons. All he does is make the playoffs when they have no business making the playoffs. All he does is put together one of the most ferocious defenses in the sport year in and year out, and they figure out the rest of the offensive stuff. So if Mike Tomlin wants to say, there's no reason to name a starting quarterback beyond this week for now, okay, Mike. And by the way, it should be Justin Fields. Like, just what is good? What is going to Russ going to do right now?
They're 3-0 with Justin Fields,
and it's more efficient than Russ's offenses of late. Now, again, we haven't seen him in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense really, but right now, Fields is doing enough. It's not perfect. There's plenty of yards that are left on the field, to be honest with you.
Look, they haven't scored more than 20 points in a game.
There's not a lot of again, it's very Steelers-esque, but the formula is successful. They have a 3-game lead in the division over the Cincinnati Bengals. That counts for something. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Raiders, I don't know if it's broke in Vegas, but it certainly was over the weekend in a loss to the Carolina Panthers with Andy Dalton slinging it around. They pulled Gardner Minshew near the end of that game. He was 18 of 28, 214 yards, a touchdown, and an interception when they pulled him. They put in Aiden O'Connell, who went 9 of 12, led a touchdown drive, 82 yards passing. But Antonio Pierce stating that they are going to stick with Gardner Minshew, according to a report by ESPN. A switch was not even considered as they take on the Browns.
Did you see what he said after Antonio Pierce after the game? We had guys making business decisions out there, so we'll make business decisions. This was Sunday after the loss. So, not mincing words from the former player turned head coach, Antonio Pierce. I mean, Aiden O'Connell, I don't know that it's going to fix. Weren't you trying to convince me that the Raiders were good?
Pesky. I said pesky.
How are you down on the Bills and up on the Raiders? You are such a odd human being.
The Bills take is not aging well. The Bills have been arguably the best team in the NFL through
Josh Allen is the second best player in the sport, and you refuse to acknowledge it. It's so weird to me.
It's the Bills take is not aging well.
Don't ever get on me for digging in on something where you think I know I'm wrong the way that you are digging in on this Bills take. It's wild to me.
He's been so good.
He said they're dead in the water. The Bills? They lost too much. Stephon Diggs, he's a Texan.
He's been so good. All right, Yep. Let's play a game. Let me throw you a football team, and you tell me if we have gotten good or bad quarterback play.
Okay.
And understanding scoring is down. So relative to what's happening in the NFL right now, right? Good or bad quarterback play. And I've removed a few teams that, it's still TBD, or like the Raiders are not on here because the Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell thing,
House of Cards.
Exactly. So, Bills.
Good.
Chiefs.
Arguably the best in the league.
Chiefs.
Good.
Bengals.
Good.
0-3.
Yeah, it's not his fault, though. I mean, that defense, traitors. Like they should have the entire defensive unit walk the plank.
Commanders.
Good.
Texans.
Well, let me say, good for a rookie. He's the best of the rookies. The rookies have been, sketchy so far.
That was one of the best performances by a rookie on the road in prime time that I've ever seen on Monday night.
The most recent sample size is good, but on the whole, it's just better than the rest of the rookies. Who was the
Texans?
Good enough, though. Minnesota had him in a blender. Had him in an apps. And by the way, Minnesota's doing that to everybody this year. I got some crazy numbers on the Minnesota defense through 3 weeks.
Cardinals.
I haven't seen a game. What's he look like? Is he playing well?
He's making plays. That's all I can say about Kyler Murray.
I haven't seen a card. They're 1-2. They just lost by 7 to the Lions over the weekend, and they were held to 3 points in the second half of that game. So I don't want to speak one way or the other on Kyler because I know their defense is not good.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's not turning the ball over. He's completing 68.6% of his passes, 635 yards through 3 games. I think that's enough to say solid. I mean,
Kyler is the most talented quarterback that I am down on probably in the NFL because, I don't know what
Titans would take the quarterback play of Kyler Murray right now.
Hell yes.
So I'm willing to say good.
Well, no, you can't grade it on a scale of the Titans would take that quarterback play because the Titans quarterback play famously is like somebody hit the nuclear option.
Giants.
No. No.
Bears.
No.
Ravens.
Not as good as he should be. But I think that's a Todd Monken problem. I think that Todd Monken is having the same problem that Titans offensive coordinators had here the last couple of years. Is like, you got to pick your spots with Derek. And it's not as seamless as you want to make it. Even though both of them have, what are they already over? They're both over 250 rushing yards. Derek has 281. Lamar has 254. They're the first pair of teammates with at least 250 rushing yards in the team's first 3 games of the season since like 1976.
Browns. Bad.
It makes me smile.
Colts, Jags, Titans.
No.
Panthers.
They did last week.
49ers.
No, but he doesn't have anybody out there. Their offensive line is hurt. Their playmakers are hurt. They're down bad right now.
Yeah, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey.
That's bad.
Debo Samuel.
He's still doing his Bleacher Report podcast.
The injuries have really piled up.
Yeah.
Okay, Vikings.
Yes.
Seahawks.
Good.
Bucks.
Was not good last week.
No, it's honestly dropped off since that incredible week 1 performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's, I'll say league average.
Well, of the good, you look at teams like Jets, Vikings, Seahawks, Steelers, Saints, Bucks, Falcons, who have gotten good quarterback play this season out of a quarterback on his second or third NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it's crazy how concentrated this is in the AFC South of Colts, Jags, Titans, all quarterbacks in their second to fourth years playing on their rookie contract that in some cases have not just been bad, but dreadful. Dreadful. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was
dreadful,
spinning into nothing. Like Trevor,
he threw an absolute dime to DeMar Hamlin.
He did. Was that on the play that he got sacked on the play? Did you see the spin move in the pocket? Like perfectly clean pocket. He's sitting and then he starts moving around. He does a spin move like I do when I walk into the kitchen and I'm like putting a move on the island in my kitchen. You know what I mean?
Do you do that on a regular basis?
You ever do that? You ever do like swim moves on furniture as you're walking around your house?
Such a D-bag move.
Oh, you've never done that? You've never juked out the credenza or anything?
It's a stationary object.
Jackson?
I've 100% done that.
Yeah, thank you. You're either a liar or you're just a liar. But the point is, you could make an argument.
Who's trying to juke out a credenza?
That more teams.
You don't even know what a credenza is.
Have gotten good quarterback play out of quarterbacks that are on their second or third team in their career than teams that are playing with a quarterback they drafted.
It just happened to the Titans and Malik. That is probably the overarching fear of the Titans fan right now is he doesn't look good because he's here. He could look better somewhere else. Talking about Levis. And here's the thing, like, you know what's also gone underreported with this Titans team right now? I saw I think it was PK had the stat, and I'll double check his timeline specifically about the pass rush and how much it's struggling when they're not sending additional pressure. You want to guess where they rank in pass pressure percentage right now? 1 through 32. You want to take a guess?
Just tell me.
26th. Would you have said that coming into and listen, they didn't get close to Malik. They didn't get anywhere near him throughout the course of that game. 26th. We talked about the lack of notable edge rush presence. Harold is a good player. Jeff is a good player. Sweat can generate a pass rush, but that's not his primary job there. It's just a plus if you can get it out of him. And also, he was playing a lot more snaps, and it was hot as hell out there, and you saw it start to wear on them throughout the course of the game. But Arden Key, I mean, Titans fans were excited that he didn't get suspended, and I'm getting jokes in my mentions about, well, just waiting for Arden Key to come off suspension. And it's not just Arden, like, it's across the board. They're not getting to the quarterback. That's a big part of this as well. So defense was good through 2 weeks. They had a bad performance on this past Sunday against the Packers. I'm trying to figure out how much of the first 2 weeks are closer to what this defense is, or how much of week 3 is closer to what this defense is. Interesting couple of things there about the quarterbacks for sure. Coming up next, Brian Callahan. He's going to be at the podium. We'll carry it live. QC Kinetics is the place that you need to go if you're dealing with achy joints. You can get real lasting pain relief because advanced regenerative medicine is what they offer. If you're tired of arthritic pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder, it's something that you got to check out. Everybody's talking about regenerative medicine, and the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are experts in these amazing treatments. People here rave about the results. You can enhance your joints, improve mobility, and get back to doing the stuff you love without pain, without drugs, without surgery, or downtime. They've got tens of thousands of satisfied patients, and the consultation is totally free. So call now, take action to get lasting joint pain relief with help from QC Kinetics in Murfreesboro, 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Brian Callahan, I lied to you. I said we were going to carry it live. He spoke earlier today, not too long ago, but just long enough to where I should probably say that it's not live. But this is still the Titans head coach being asked many questions, especially about his right tackle situation.
All right. Okay.
When you're going up against a guy like Tyreek Hill and a team, how much of an advantage or an asset is it to have someone like L'Jarius Sneed?
Huge. Obviously played against him multiple times before in big games and big spots. He is no stranger to his speed and ability, but he's played against him enough times to know what that feels like, and it's to be a nice matchup. Those are two elite players in our league, and those are what people pay to see.
Some of those battles in the playoff game last year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a good battle. I mean, it's LJ's got a way about him. He's got a physical nature to his game, and it was fun to watch those two compete. That was a really, really fun matchup.
Extra day this week from a preparation standpoint, maybe from managing health standpoint.
Yeah, today was just a walkthrough for us, and then the players are pretty much done today. It gives them one more extra day to recover from the Sunday's game, and we introduced a little bits and pieces of the game plan for them, so they get to start their week basically a day later. So tomorrow is like our Wednesday, our first day of the week. This was just a little bit of a bonus walkthrough and installation, and then for us on the coaching staff, we do all the work on the front end, and then we catch the end of the week as our extra time. So we try to stay on schedule for us, game planning wise, and the players get an extra day. I know it probably sounds complicated, but that's how we do it.
Jeff said he's making the plays he's supposed to make. Maybe he's even missed a couple of those. He's kind of regarded as the in-house as a superstar of this team. Shouldn't there be more coming from a guy of his stature?
I'll say the same thing I said to our entire team the other day, is that we need more from everybody. That's from top to bottom. That's from me. That's from our coaching staff. That's from our players. I mean, we're at 0-3, and whatever we've done to this point ultimately hasn't been enough, and we need more from everybody. But as far as Jeff's specific play, I'm happy with where Jeff's at and what he's done for us. But again, I just think that there needs to be another level that we have to unlock across our team on all three phases, and our coaching staff and my coaching as well. So that part of it, I think, is where we're at. Is we're 0-3, and we need more from everybody.
You talked before about trying not to force your team into the hole that is your scheme and adjusting to what they're good at. Through 3 weeks, have you identified some of those things they're good at, maybe not as good at, and maybe what's an example of something like that?
Certainly, there's a lot of things I've learned about. It's more about learning about the players too. Things that what they're like on game day, how they react to certain things, what feedback you get from them. I feel really a lot better about my knowledge of what our players are like 3 weeks in than I did 3 weeks ago, for sure. And some of the schematics that suit Will well, some of the things that help our offensive line. Again, got to find more of those things, but I feel good about how much I've learned in a short amount of time, and it's helpful because it helps me put those guys in better position. As far as specifics, I don't want to give away too much because that process is still ongoing, but there's definitely things that I've learned every week, and refined our process, refined my own process. I feel a lot more confident calling plays Sunday than I did the Sunday before, and about putting our guys in the right spots. So it's an ongoing process that we're having, but I feel good about what I've learned so far.
The success that tempo and being on the ball has gotten you guys later in games. Is that something you would consider like doing a little bit more earlier in the game to find that sense of urgency for you as well as the offense itself? Yeah,
there's a mix. I think a common thing that happens is when you get into those 2-minute spots at the end of games, the defense changes too because they're in a different style. So it's not always an apples to apples comparison at the end of the game to early in the game, but certainly there's a place for tempo. There's a place for changing your tempo out of the huddle. Those are all things that we look at and have in our arsenal to use. So those are definitely things that we've considered.
Is there something that could be said to like the urgency that it creates? Being on the ball.
Yeah, there's also an execution part of it too. I've learned some lessons over the years. We did a lot of tempo in Denver with Peyton, and we were on the ball quite a bit. And sometimes when you try to emulate that, and you end up going 3 and out really fast sometimes too. And part of that is possessing the football and helping your defense out. There's a complementary piece to it. So it just be mindful of it, but there's a place for it, certainly.
What have you liked about the way Jarvis goes about his work and specifically how he's embracing the opportunity this week?
Yeah, everything about Jarvis, his mindset, his intensity, the way that he plays is exciting. He's going to get a big opportunity to show what that looks like for him in a game, and I think he's up to the task. He's mentally a pretty tough kid, and I think he's got the skills to be a really good corner in this league, and he's going to get thrown into it probably earlier than maybe he expected, and I think that's exciting for him, and we get a chance to see what he looks like in that spot, because this is a good group of receivers that he's going to go face, and the one thing I know about him is he's not scared, and he is not intimidated, and that's what makes corners in this league good, is the ability to go out there and compete regardless of who they're playing against. So it'd be a good test for him.
How would you characterize your Monday conversation with Amy?
Business as usual. We talk about all the things we always talk about. Good, bad, questions she had, questions I had, anything she wants to clarify from the game. I think we have a really good communication. We've had it ever since I've been here. We've had it, and I enjoy talking to her. I enjoy getting her feedback and getting her perspective. She's also been around a lot of different eras of football, and it's she sees things for what they are, and we get a chance to communicate about it. So pretty standard, business as usual.
How long is that conversation?
I enjoy talking to her. Our conversations sometimes go between anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, and those are usually pretty enjoyable conversations too. So it was good.
Kind of in the same boat as last week with the other team questions at quarterback. What are the difference in maybe some of their options? And I imagine you focused on making the Titans better, worried less about them.
Yeah, I think that whoever they play out there, we got to make sure we're on top of our game and we execute the game plan the way that's intended. I think that's the most important part. I do think that I've watched. I've seen Tim Boyle for a number of years. He's been around a while, especially when he was in Green Bay. I always enjoyed watching him throw in pregame. I always thought he had a pretty good talent. And then played against Snoop Huntley. I've seen him play in playoff games. He's a really good football player. And so however they choose to deploy those guys, we'll be ready for it. But ultimately, it's going to come down to how we execute and what we do, regardless of who's playing quarterback for them. They got a lot of other good players, too, that cause you enough concern.
In terms of the mistakes, you talked about their speed. Sorry, Darren. You talked about their speed. What's the key to combating that?
It's a mix of things. You got to affect the quarterback. If you can't get the ball down the field, it's hard to get the ball if he can't get it off. And then you got to be on top of it. You got to be technically sound because they're so good at what they do schematically, as well as just physically talented. The whole picture is really complete for them. They do a great job. So you got to be on your eye discipline. You got to be on your technique, and then you have to be able to match the physical nature of what they do, and they run real fast. And I think we got guys that can do that. And then you got to help with the secondary where you can, whether it's 2 safety shells and cloud and all those things all factor into it. So it'll be a mixed approach to how you handle those guys. It always is. You never want to give them one thing because they'll adjust to. But that's how I think the battle will play out, and you got to find a way to win in more downs than they do.
You preached about cleaning up the mistakes and the things that have happened week to week. How many of those mistakes have kind of been overly punitive in terms of the result that's happened from them?
It sure feels like a few of them have, where you're giving up points the other way. I think I talked on Monday after the game just about the point differential we've given up on the turnovers. Those have been pretty critical. It's one thing to turn the ball over and not give up touchdowns or hold people to field goals. We've turned the ball over and given up 7 points, which makes it really difficult to overcome. And you have enough of those over a short amount of time. They can be pretty impactful, and they have been so far. So our mistakes are too many, but when we have made them, they've been, fatal in a sense. We've made some really, really critical mistakes.
And in terms of that, is it a situation where you're not good enough right now to overcome those mistakes like a lot of teams are able to do?
I wouldn't say that. I just think that it just makes it even harder for us in our first couple of games when we're all trying to get familiar and comfortable and understanding what all of us are trying to get done. And it makes it a lot harder. We haven't had enough success to sustain with a chance. We haven't given ourselves a chance to win the game because of those things. And I think winning sometimes validates your efforts in a sense. Again, I still very much focus on our process, but there's a validation that occurs with winning, and we haven't had that yet. And I think that it does go a long way when you knew and early on in your tenure trying to get things off the ground that the wins help validate your process, and we haven't gotten that yet. But I think a lot of it's because of some of the mistakes we've made along the way so far that we have to eliminate. I'll go back to Q.
I know this O-line is still trying to find its rhythm together. With Peter Skoronski in particular, though, maybe is he at the point where you guys thought he would be, or what are those things you need to still see out of him at that left guard spot? Yeah, I think that left side's played pretty well for us. I think there's some things in pass pro. I think early in the first game or two, he was getting more comfortable with, and I think he played decent last week. I mean, again, we haven't played well enough anywhere to feel like we're able to win the game, but I've been pleased with where he's at. He's performed well. He's going to have to keep growing and keep performing, though, because it's critical to have our high pick players play at a high level. I mean, that's how you have a good football team, and right now we just need more, like I said.
Do in the NFL with one side tackle-wise being serviceable? Can you coach around having one strong tackle?
Yeah, I think so. I've been in places where we've done it. Yes, there is a way you can help. I mean, very few people have 5 all-pro starters. Very few people have 2 tackles that are of the same caliber. Some do, but very few do, and you have to find ways to help that. I mean, you're always trying to help your weaknesses somewhere. Very few teams are complete when it comes to having everything you absolutely would want to have on a roster, and that's our job as coaches, is to find ways to, one, highlight our strengths, and 2, try to find a way to minimize whatever our weaknesses are, because everybody has them. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses on their roster, on their team, at whatever positions, and that's my job, to put guys in position to highlight those things, and then again to help where we don't have where we consider our weaknesses might be. So yeah, it's definitely possible. I think it happens all around the league.
How do you deal with the strain of wanting to give Will patience, needing to give Will patience, any young quarterback to grow, and needing to win game?
It's a delicate balance, because it's still, at the end of the day, a business that we're all involved in that is production based, and we haven't produced enough yet at any point, and you still have to take that with a grain of salt, because there are things that we do have to get better at and that aren't immediate. But I'd say there's an urgency. There's an urgency to get the things fixed that need to be fixed, and make improvements fast. And again, I think that's what makes teams good in this league, is how quickly you can fix an issue and how urgent you are to get it done. And you only got 17 weeks to get it all done, and so that's our goal, is to fix as much as we can fix as fast as possible.
That impulse to double clutch on a ditch the next time after the pick six. Do you see that as growth? Do you see that as a good thing, or do you see that as something that still kind of needs to be coached to be brave on those?
Yeah, I think that's the human nature. When you have something go wrong, you're a little bit mentally just going to be hesitant on maybe the next time. But I think there's growth and there's learning involved in that, and maybe he pays a little bit more attention to what the leverage is, or if the corner moves at all. I mean, there's little things that does help you improve when those bad plays happen, because I do think you certainly learn way more, unfortunately, in failure than you do in success. And right now, we've had enough failure to go around, but you're certainly hoping that promotes a whole bunch of growth, and I think that's one of the things that's happening right now for Will, and I've been really encouraged by that.
In terms of that, with his emotions, he's sometimes an emotional and fiery guy. Do you want that as part of his game?
Yeah, I want Will to be himself, whatever that is for him. All these quarterbacks aren't created equal. They don't all operate the same. One of the things that he does possess, and that's a intensity and a physicalness and an emotional part of the game that is good. But I will say that most quarterbacks that I've ever been around do have a certain calmness during the game, and that part is really good. He communicates well when he comes to the sideline. But yeah, there's a time and a place for emotion, certainly, and I think that that's one of the things he's always done well, is been able to show that. So there's a balance, I think, involved in that, and I want to see him show the emotion when we do all the really good things, and it's exciting. That's what you want to see.
As you look across the league offenses, it seems like that run-pass balance is tilting Do you feel that's the league self-correcting itself against a lot of the too high? And if so, like, do you think that's something that will continue?
We'll see. You know, I do think that the sample size is small right now, but there's been a shift. I think statistically, as you look at it, teams are more intently running the football than maybe they were 2 years ago. So yeah, I think you're seeing a slight shift in process because it's hard to throw the ball all over the place against some of these defenses and how they play, and they make you earn it, and they put a lot on the quarterback to be able to complete 7-8 balls a drive for 6 to 9 drives a game. I mean, it's we all understand the philosophy of what that means, and so I think the run game is something that is probably more in vogue now at this early part of the season than it was the last couple of years. I think the numbers would bear that out.
Bring up the creativity and explosiveness of a Mike McDaniel's offense. As an offensive-minded coach yourself, what do you see in that has led to so much success for him?
They're so creative. They're unique because they have so much speed at all the positions on offense. They're running backs, they're receivers. They do a really nice job, particularly with using Alec Ingold in the fullback, like a hybrid role with the fullback role. They're just really, really thought out, well coached. They're technically sound. Everything they do from a schematic standpoint puts a ton of stress on the defense. It's really fun as an offensive coach to watch. I think you see everybody probably tries to steal something from what they do, but I don't know that you can ever duplicate what and how they do it because of the players they have. They have a very unique collection of players that not everybody has that same kind of speed, but I mean, they're unbelievably creative in how they deploy those people.
Then in a week like this, what's the conversation like with Denard of, hey, they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you. This is what we might want to prepare for.
Yeah, I think their stuff's on tape. You know, they do have an offensive core and they have things they believe in, and that stuff is usually not a surprise. But you're really more worried about how do you handle their speed, how do you handle the perimeter, and then how do you make sure you keep the lid on top of that explosiveness, because last year their season hasn't started the way they've wanted, I'm sure, but last year they're one of the most explosive offenses in football, and that's a huge challenge for us defensively.
Deciding, Brian, what we go into this week deciding what you do at right tackle?
We'll just see how practice goes. Again, sometimes when guys get pulled from games, it's not always necessarily means that their starting job is gone. It just means that they weren't playing very well in that game. So we'll see. We'll let them both practice. They're both going to get reps, and they might even both play. We'll see how that looks. I don't have any real definitive answer on that at the current moment, but as the week goes on, I'll have a little more clarity.
Both being.
Go ahead.
Talked a lot about turnover margin defensively. We've heard for a couple weeks now we need to create more turnovers, but that's kind of a lot easier said than done. Have you guys been able to identify something your defense needs to do better to create those turnovers?
Yeah, I think there's definitely things we can do better. I'm not going to tell you all the things that they are right now, but there's things that help with turnovers. Part of it is turnovers sometimes are a little bit of luck. Some of it's a little bit of we need to do a better job. I think when you play with a lead, it allows you to go get the quarterback at a different rate than when you're watching them hand the ball off as they have, they're playing with a lead against you. It gives you more opportunities to go after the quarterback, more opportunities for the ball to get loose. So I think playing with a lead is one of the things that we got to do a better job of maintaining and playing with. So it gives our defense a chance to go rush the quarterback and force them into mistakes. And I think that's what good defenses and offenses, when they're playing complementary, do. They force you into a game plan that you don't necessarily want to play, and you have a chance to affect the quarterback more often. When you're handing the ball off and you're chewing up clock and you're not getting passing opportunities, it's a lot harder to get the ball back on defense. The ball usually in the air or on the quarterback is where you're creating turnovers. Most of these running backs usually don't cough the ball up very often. They do a good job. So it's kind of on it's a holistic thing. It's not just the defense getting turnovers. It's our offense getting a lead and playing with the lead and allowing them to have opportunities to get after the quarterback more often.
Definitely going or have you guys made that decision?
Not officially yet. We haven't made the decision. That'll probably come in the next day or two, but I would say it's probably likely at this point that that'll be the case.
100% sure. When you say both will play at right tackle, you meant Petit Frere and Duncan.
Yes, those two, yeah.
Are you signing Gifford this week?
Yeah, we'll make a roster move for Gifford at some point. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. That's the head coach. Interesting stuff there about the right tackle situation. Both could play. Last call for phone call, 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. The Tennessee Men's Clinic specializes in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. Don't trust your health to an online pharmacy, and don't feel like you're out of options. We want you to understand all your options for treating erectile dysfunction. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low T to ED, treatments that increase size and stamina, and everything else in between. Bottom line, no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They are passionate about what they do. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for the Franklin or Midtown location, or call them at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or online at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So that was the coach's press conference. Seeing some reaction from that on the Zone TV chat. You can also call us, 615-737-1045. A couple of different comments that made me laugh. It's a mystery why they haven't signed Chris Hubbard, says Jay on YouTube. And then he goes on to add, media needs to directly ask Callahan about Hubbard. Okay, what do you want him to say? He doesn't sign players off practice squad. Now, of course, he's in meetings about personnel and these kind of things, but, like, I don't know, if you're going to ask anybody about the practice squad signings off other teams' rosters, it'd be the general manager, not the head coach.
Yeah, you wouldn't get anything out of that question, but it's worth talking about tomorrow. We can dive a little more into what the Titans could feasibly do to stop the bleeding there.
Or whether it doesn't make more, like the conversation that the morning show said they're going to have, whether it doesn't make more sense to sell. It sucks. That conversation sucks 3 weeks in, but like feasibly, you got to have it. 615-737-1045 is the number. Marlon's up next.
What's going on, guys?
Yo.
What y'all up to, man?
Just doing a radio show.
Hey, it's been a long time since I've been on, man. But I'm gonna say something though. I know a whole lot about football, man, and what I'm about to say, if it comes true, man, y'all gotta bring me into the radio station, man. I believe the way the season's been going and the way the division is and everybody's schedules in the division, even though the Titans haven't won a game yet, I still have them to win the division. I still got them to win the division because at some point I think they're gonna wake up or they're gonna go ahead and put the other quarterback in there because they got the team. Everything they just got their confidence is not up right now, and I believe like what Houston's schedule and all the other people in Jacksonville down, I still see them having a good chance of making the playoffs or either winning the division. Surprisingly, that's all I got to say.
Thank you for the call.
I love the optimism, but probably not going to happen. Just wanted to get that out there.
Now who's so dismissive of the callers?
Just wanted to get that out there in a nice way before you try to chop his head off.
I'm not going to. Why do you think I'm going to chop his head off?
Personal experience.
Yeah, that would be so unlike you.
Yeah.
To be nuanced and kind and gentle to the caller.
I am very nuanced. Kind is a different matter. I don't think so, but I appreciate the sentiment. You're not the only winless team in your division. So I guess, no team has more than 2 wins in the division. They're not mathematically dead yet. Miami, if they lose to Miami, I'm probably going to put a fork in them. That's probably the end of it.
One team in NFL history has made the postseason after an 0-4 start. They were the 1992 Chargers. So yes, I think I'm with you on that.
Well, we'll see. Polls. I know football, man.
The polls presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Bucket says some of these folks shocked that this UNLV quarterback is sitting out because he wasn't paid like promised. Don't blame him one bit, he says.
You're allowed to be shocked about college football players quitting. You're allowed to be over money, over an NIL financial dispute. No, you're allowed to be shocked by that.
We have no idea what actually took place. Josh Pate was in here saying he believes that the kid was asking for more. Ton of reports saying that, no, he just wasn't paid. That's certainly his side of it. But yes, this is what happens when we have a complete lack of transparency in how collegiate athletes are compensated. Jack says Traylon Burks getting more snaps than DeAndre Hopkins is the dumbest thing in sports.
Yeah, that's still happening. One would hope that as Hopkins continue, I know he wasn't on the injury report, and so people are saying, why is Burke still out snapping him? Here's the thing about Hop, okay? He has talked a lot about still needing to learn the offense. He was in Los Angeles for a couple of weeks getting his knee worked on. So if he's saying that, I'm going to take him at his word that he's not totally up to speed yet. And that's a good thing for Titans fans because it means he can get better, means his snap count will increase. But if he keeps saying, I need to continue to learn the offense, then you should probably listen to him.
This submission from Tyler is a good one. Max Verstappen getting community service for cussing and the FIA trying to make drivers watch their language on team radio during races. So Formula One's doing this thing now where they're saying, you know what? No, this is F1. We are elegant. We are the highest tier of motorsports. No more cussing on team radios because you can pick it up on the broadcast, right?
That's the best part of it.
It's bleeped. You can hear Max Verstappen really angry that Charles Leclerc cut him off in a certain way that he thinks is illegal, and he's bleeping and cussing on the radio, and it's picked up on the broadcast. F1 saying that is now banned. You're not allowed to curse on team radio during races, and Max Verstappen is pushing back on it in a big way. Most drivers are, and F1 is penalizing him, giving him community service like he held up a convenience store or something like that. It has been it's been a lot of ridiculousness, but that's a great submission by Tyler. Man, can you imagine if, like, the NFL just said, no more cussing on the field? No more.
Well, I mean, they've kind of tried that sometimes. I don't know. The NFL.
Yeah, then they put out mic'd up videos of players with bleeps every other word.
Well, they keep trying to mic Jeff Simmons up, but it's really Jeff Simmons and Vrabel, two of the hardest people to mic up and successfully get any of it to air.
Do you think we're getting a fair evaluation of Will Levis this season? 51% say no. Let's talk about that some more tomorrow.
Okay.
Which fan base would handle a loss this weekend worse, Georgia or Bama? 59% of the audience say Georgia.
Ask the question again, I'm sorry.
Which fan base would handle a loss worse? Most people say Georgia's fan base would handle it worse.
I think, because Georgia now expects to beat Alabama every time.
Yeah. Now it's, no, this is us. This is our time. We are now the standard. I think I agree with that. And what are your adjusted season expectations for the Titans after the 0-3 start? Kyle says 14-3, baby. Aaron says the same thing. A lot of people are saying 7-10. UW says might have some surprising wins along the way. Like Ryan says, I guess 17-0 was a little unrealistic. Looking at 14-3 now. Those are the polls.
Okay. You know what? I appreciate those people. I hope the best for you because your mental sanity, I think, now depends on it. That's it for us today. I'm back on Primetime tonight, 7 p.m. I'll talk to you then.